Hi everybody and welcome back to another episode of Pop Parinig. First of all, we would like to thank all of you. We have gotten so much love. We have received so many supportive comments over the past week. We just want to thank everyone for all the support. And it's so nice that we are getting a lot of this love, not just from viewers from the Philippines, but we've also been getting a lot of attention from people all over the world, and we can't be more grateful. So thank you. And we promise you, we'll be doing so much more content. And because we realize that a lot of people who are not from the Philippines, we will be doing a lot more content that is going to try to bridge Filipino pop culture to worldwide viewers. And that means we're going to be coming up with videos and content to understand more the Filipino trends, the happenings in Filipino pop culture, maybe a little bit of the history when it comes to Filipino media. We would love to do a lot of that content for you. So if you don't want to miss any of that content, just subscribe to our channel because we will be coming up with a lot of those content for you very, very soon. But for this video, so as I've said, we have been getting a lot of comments for our last video, which was basically my own and our own take on the place of Asian talent in the Drag Race universe. But it's also a very touchy subject. I'm not going to deny it. So there were a lot of comments there that were very insightful, and I felt like it would be a nice thing if I could also address some of those comments, and that is what we're going to do in this video today. As of this filming, we posted our Slaying in Silence video less than a week ago, I think, and we've received a lot of comments. And we'll be dealing with some of the more insightful ones so we can talk more about this topic, because I do think it's an important thing for us to have this conversation. So let's start with, what about the Latinas? There's yet to be one. So for this person who commented, I'm not sure what you mean about there's yet to be one, because I know that in the history of American Drag Race, we have had 2 winners of Latina heritage, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that Bianca Del Rio won season 6 and Violet Chachki won season 7. But I do agree about the similarities between the Latinas and the Asian queens in terms of the treatment when it comes to their stories being told on this show. And we'll be dealing with this a little bit later because there were a lot of comments about that. Let's go to the next one. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I don't know if you can include Pangina and Manila because production didn't have much control over their elimination because the contestants were eliminating each other. You're correct. They were eliminated by other contestants, and I would say that there is less impact by production over there, but I feel like the point still stands of why queens of such standing as Pangina or Manila, and even someone like Marina Summers get positioned that way over and over again. But for me, I don't think that it's fully like a hands-off production thing, because why would certain queens be in the bottom in the first place? If I remember it correctly, Pangina was in the bottom in an episode where it became like, if you're not on top, all of you are in the bottom. Yeah, which I think was a fucked up production decision. Like, why do it then? When it comes to Manila, I remember that challenge. It was a makeover challenge. Was she the best during that challenge? No, but I definitely didn't think she deserved to be in the bottom for that episode. So it just feels like a lot of these situations, and again, this is coming from an outsider point of view, but a lot of these decisions seem like they're architectured to be that way. And I always feel like, why are the sacrificial lambs always the Asian queens, or as we've touched on, always the Latina queens? So there's always this thing with people of color, with queens of color on the show, that I feel like isn't being addressed. And so I hope they kind of see that this is happening. Next comment. Your video is a bias to an extent. If you look at the percentage of Muslim, Middle East, Australia that participate at US Drag Race, you will see that they are much lower than Asian. You will see that they are much lower Drag Race. You will see that they are much lower than Asian. On top of that, there are variables that you didn't mention. The only Middle Eastern participant is Jackie Cox, so why did she not win? I'm gonna cut to, all in all, this show was there initially for the US audience. If you will take statistics into account, you will see the representative of the drag queen and diversity is there. But overall, there is only room for one winner, and this time it was Nymphia. Congrats. That was a lot, so let's unpack that comment. Number one, I will acknowledge that we did talk about Asian queens on the show, and to a certain degree, we did disregard Middle East queens because the Middle East is definitely part of Asia, and we totally missed that, and that's on us. So let's talk about that now. I totally agree that Jackie Cox has been also disregarded by the franchise because I feel like during that season, it was a great, strong, fabulous season. I thought Jackie Cox should have won Snatch Game that season. I thought Jackie Cox deserved to be in the finale, especially because they cut someone from the finale. They could have just replaced her with Jackie. And Jackie Cox falls under being Asian. So yes, that was a part that we did miss. Number two, the Muslim thing. Now, I'm not sure because sometimes queens aren't really forthcoming or aren't really open about their religious background. Some of the queens just don't practice any religions, even though they were raised in certain religions. So that's one thing. In terms of being branded as like a Muslim queen, I know that the show considered Mercedes Iman Diamond of season 11 to be the first Muslim queen to walk into the workroom. So as far as the representation of Muslim queens, that's all I know. But there is another comment that I think is a great response to this issue by the original commenter. The response is, but do we know how many Muslim contestants have auditioned for RuPaul's Drag Race? Or how many were Muslim but no longer follow the teachings? Raja is Indonesian and her uncle was a well-known Muslim philosopher and politician. Perhaps Raja grew up Muslim and later gave it up. Bottom line is that Muslim is a religion, not a race, as you can walk away from religion, as I'm sure many queens have done. You can't, however, undo your race. And she makes a good point. I think the whole conversation, the whole reason why I made that video was it was really about race, of like, why are Asians being treated this way in the franchise and all other queens of color? And I think that the idea of Muslim queens is a related but also a separate conversation. Okay, let's go to the next comment. Out of all the Asian queens, I feel like Nymphia needed to win. Her win is such a big deal since she's representing Taiwan, the most liberal and progressive Asian country that supports LGBTQIA+. She represented her country and culture well. I hope that no one took that video as like us kind of pushing Nymphia's win down, because we were all celebrating. I think every Asian fan was celebrating that after 13 years, another Asian queen was able to win the crown, and that's really important, and that's something that we really should celebrate. But I do think that leading up to this win, I hope that we can't forget about kind of the struggle that Asian queens somehow had to go through since, I believe, season 9 to just get kind of the right kind of attention when appearing on the show. But definitely congratulations to Nymphia Wind, and she has been killing it. A lot of people are talking about how she's, again, being disrespected because they released the cast of All Stars 9 right around, like, the same day she won, I believe. And people thought that that was kind of shady. If I remember it correctly, they would always just release All Stars promos around the time of the Drag Race finale. However, I don't know if this is the first time that they actually released the Meet the Queens almost the same day as the crowning of the winner. That is part of this larger conversation about how Asian winners and Asian queens are treated in the franchise. Comment. What's interesting is that simultaneously, the supermajority, 10 out of 16 of the winners on the US franchise have been queens of color. This is despite the fact that the majority of the population in the US is of white or Western European descent. Yet somehow, people still feel like Asian and Latina queens in particular are ill-represented. I think it comes down to the story and production of said queens that causes this issue, because even if a queen is an early out, you can be memorable, such as a Mirage or Tammy Brown. It's all about the packaging. We don't need Asian Latina queens to always make it to the finale or win, just tell a better narrative. I definitely agree that, just because Drag Race is like the show that embraces representation and diversity, that like a person of color has to win all the time. That's not the point we were trying to make. And I think what we missed in the original video that I think we can give substance to now is the fact that I think the issue really isn't diversity, because the show is diverse. Like the first few seasons, the cast has always been more person of color than white queens. So the show has always been diverse. I think the issue is representation, you know, because what happens is if you have Asian queens and, like, as the other comment said, Latina queens or just queens of color, when they're always like eliminated early, that kind of sends the message that the franchise thinks that these queens just aren't good for the show or aren't deserving of the win. But again, as explained in the original video, so many Asian queens, and may I add, so many Latina queens, so many indigenous queens are fierce and definitely could win the competition. Why are they always relegated to these positions that don't seem to open up the opportunity for them to be seen as a viable winner? 5. Gia Gunn was never talented enough. Now, Manila, Nymphia, and Raja are on a whole other level. Stop acting like Gia belongs in this category. In season 15, we all knew Sasha was going to win regardless of who was on the show. First of all, we never said in the video that Gia Gunn should have won All Stars 4. What I merely said was the quality of the performance that she did on the stage on that episode, the talent show variety episode of All Stars 4, I thought she deserved to be in the top 2, and she didn't, which was an experience that I had as a viewer to further explain why I felt like Asian queens, especially those who openly bring their culture to the forefront, are disregarded by the franchise. Now, do I agree that if you say Gia Gunn is not on the same level as like a Manila or a Raja or a Nymphia? I can't say that because the value or like the entertainment value that a queen brings to you is definitely subjective. I find Gia Gunn to be a fierce, entertaining, beautiful drag queen. And if you don't agree with that, you're free to think that. But I never said that she should have won All Stars 4. Comment. It makes me feel bad when production seemingly doesn't like Asian talents and influences so quickly, as well that the majority of the fan base doesn't care about these emotions that a lot of Asian fans and queens feel. It's like the general fan base doesn't actually care about racism. I can believe the same experiences from Latina queens, often positions as filler with the slim intention of having them win. I hope it'll be different this All Stars. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the reason why we thought of making the video in the first place, is because for me personally, that's something that I've just noticed over the years where I feel like, why are Asian queens always the early outs? Why are Latina queens always the early outs? Like, that was a question mark in my mind. Let's face it, sometimes it does feel like production already has the pecking order even before filming. So why do they keep picking an Asian queen or a Latina queen to kind of go home this early? There's a queen in season 11 who is Asian, who we will not mention because of the controversy surrounding her. Before she even was cast on season 11, I already knew of her. A lot of fans already knew of her because she was doing Drag Race reviews on her YouTube channel. And on her YouTube channel, I can personally say she was not polished. She was not Drag Race ready, in my opinion. But they still cast her on season 11, clearly to become an early out. And she was eliminated first that season. And why was that choice made? Because if I was a producer, or if I was someone in charge of casting and wanted to produce a season that was really fierce with all the cast, like really fierce queens worthy of the win, I would just cast everyone based on talent. But they clearly picked a queen of color who's not polished to go home first. You know what I mean? Like, why? Like, I just want to know. But having said that, I mean, maybe the tide is turning. But having said that, which we mentioned in the video, is sometimes people just aren't aware, because sometimes if people of color don't have that much voice behind the scenes, these things just go unnoticed. So maybe it was not intentional, but if it keeps happening over and over again and no one notices, clearly something has to change. Second to the last comment. Okay, but even with the newest season with Nymphia, she had the least amount of confessionals and we didn't get to see her even though she won the whole thing. I will say I noticed this. I felt like they were giving Nymphia great moments during the first half of the season. I love this whole Nymphia is strategic. She like pretends to be like queen who doesn't know what she's doing, always nervous. I love that. She had that moment in the first half of the season, and towards the end, I felt like she was a little bit kind of pushed to the side. Not sure what that was for, because I thought that out of all the queens this season, I will say she was the most consistent. I don't think there was any challenge that she really flailed. Snatch Game was questionable, but I think that I've seen worse Snatch Game performances. I think that's why we're having this conversation. I'm half Asian, half Latino, so it's very sad to see how underestimated and mistreated the Asian and Latina queens are. And again, circling back to the earlier comments about Latinas experiencing the same thing, I also remember a comment where someone said like the show just doesn't know how to produce Asian and Latina queens. That might be true. Personally, it's not like I'm looking for like a rule book or like, oh, when there's a queen of color, where there's an Asian queen, this is what they should do. This is Latina queen, this is what they should do. I'm not asking for the show to do that. I'm just a person watching the show, sharing my opinion, and if people think that something needs to be done about it, then do something about it. Because again, sometimes people just aren't paying attention, you know? And when we keep things the way they are, because we're not paying attention to it, sometimes it affects certain groups of people negatively. From like season 9 to like season 13, because I don't even think they had like an Asian queen in season 14. It seemed like Asians just weren't good drag queens, which clearly is not the case. So I just hope that everyone involved in making the show are just much more aware now, especially because fans have celebrated Nymphia's win, and more fans are just more vocal about their opinions about how queens are treated on the show. Yeah, so those were some of the comments that caught our attention from our last video, and thank you guys for sharing your thoughts, and I'm really happy to be able to respond to them so that we can have more conversations about this. I don't feel the need to keep this conversation going on the channel because I know that a lot of people are already talking about this with or without watching the video on platforms like Reddit, on Twitter. So many platforms are dealing with this, and that's great because when conversations happen, then solutions happen. I really just want to be able to enjoy RuPaul's Drag Race as a fan, and I'm excited for All Stars. So aside from what I said earlier, that we will be coming up with a lot of content to bridge the Filipino pop culture to global audiences, we will definitely be doing content about upcoming All Stars 9 and the upcoming 3rd season of Drag Race Philippines. So if you guys don't want to miss any of that, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.